need anything formal to begin in?
Call it to order and.
Okay,
Yep.
I'm going to call this Youth Education Committee to order and start off right away with, I'm sure we'll have some folks rolling in, other board members maybe, but start off with the homeschool assistants.
We just need to approve the minutes
Oh,
first.
we need to approve the minutes.
So
Thank you.
I move that we approve the minutes.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, minutes are approved. Now we can start with the homeschool.
Hey, good afternoon. I am Karen Waltman, and I am one of the parent representatives on the Homeschool Assistance Program Advisory Committee. Another parent representative is joining us today to help present the report. This is Cara Michelson, and she has 7 years experience in the program, and I've been with the program for 8 years. We'd also like to recognize some of the other committee members who are here today. We have Amy Baum, one of our supervising teachers with the program, Kate Callahan, administrator, and she was our committee facilitator, Ann Langenfeld, elementary administrator, and John Nettie, our secondary administrator. So the advisory committee was convened in the spring of 2017 to make recommendations for better serving families currently enrolled in the ICHSAP, improving retention of homeschooling families in ICCSD programming, and to aid facilities planning for the district. The advisory committee is made up of administrators, supervising teachers, parent educators, and a community member who were selected through an application process. We met 7 times between May and December to plan, collect, and discuss information and make recommendations for ICHSAP program offerings and facilities. The committee was aided in our work by Diane and Craig, who came to meet with us and answer questions, and by staff at the Mid-Prairie HSAP, who met with administrators to share information and ideas. The committee also conducted a parent and student survey. Cara's going to take over with our program recommendations.
Okay, so during the course of our work, administrators determined that there were program improvements that could be made right away. The improvements that began before the committee finalized its work are listed on pages 6 and 7 in the report. These improvements include increased administrative support, library staffing, library materials, access to district events for homeschooling families, the implementation of a one-on-one device initiative, piloting a new schedule of classes, and creation of a parent space and a parent-teacher organization. The committee also made recommendations for the future ICHSAP programming beginning on page 7 of the report. Some of these have already begun being implemented. The recommendations which have begun implementation include creating a district diploma option, an intent to enroll process, parent and staff handbooks are already underway, collaborating with the PTO to plan social events, and increasing staff knowledge of homeschooling. Programming recommendations that have not yet been implemented include obtaining parent suggestions for criteria to use when hiring new staff members, collaborating with the PTO to create professional development classes and annual surveys, and an orientation process, and improving offerings for secondary students.
So the committee was also charged with making recommendations about facilities. Facilities are essential to program improvement efforts and can affect the quality of the experience families have with the ICHSAP. The committee identified 8 attributes that should be considered in evaluating locations for the ICHSAP. A central location within the district, ample on-site parking, near a bus route, space for classrooms, a parent resource library, and a parent work area that is suitable for parents, students, and siblings, access to specialty spaces, including an art room and a gymnasium, access to outdoor spaces, including playgrounds and natural areas, restrooms, and a setting appropriate for K-12 students and families. The committee did recommend that the ICHSAP remain at track and that the 4th classroom in the lower level of the ICHSAP wing be made available for use by the ICHSAP. In closing, I think that we have all found that this committee has been very productive for the administrators, supervising teachers, and parent educators to come together. And we are really pleased to be presenting our report and our recommendations to you today, and we'd welcome any questions anybody has.
Okay, I have a couple of questions. So in here, and one thing that I was hoping you would have in here was that we have a large number of people that go to Mid-Prairie for homeschooling, and so you studied them, and what were the major things that you took away from their program versus ours?
Do you want to take that one, Kate?
Sure. Some of the areas that, and Ann, you can help me out, and John as well, the things that we had noticed is there was an allocation of funding that was given for families to make recommendations for materials that they could utilize with their children when they were teaching their kids. So there was about $100 that could be allocated and a recommendation made for materials, and then you kind of had first dibs on those materials when they arrived. And then those are cataloged and put into the parent resource library. So the parent resource library is a critical component for homeschooling, and to make sure we had a rich library full of resources that parents could use, but then also be able to make recommendations. So that was one of the first things we did, was to actually hire a librarian that already worked with our district, so a .25 librarian to come on board, and also increased staffing in our library. So we increased resources for parents, but we also increased resources for students with the elementary and secondary library as well. And some other areas. The administrative oversight I thought was pretty critical. And Ann, I don't know if you want to speak to that a little bit more, or John.
Right. So one of the things that John and I do, like I have an elementary focus, John has a secondary focus, and looking at programming, and one of the things that I can bring to the district is there's opportunities that all of the students are taking advantage of, whether it be the elementary track meet or any given child. We're able to offer more opportunities for the inclusion of our homeschooling families in those events. Also, we are able to offer optional assessments such as our FAST reading and math screening that we hadn't done before, which is completely optional for homeschooling, but a great tool as parent educators to help them guide the instruction of their children. And then we have our state assessments too, but just adding more of the programming and bringing more of our resources to our homeschool students that are at no cost to our program.
Can you think of other major differences with Mid-Prairie? The diploma option was one that we've developed a homeschool diploma option for our families that will be ready to roll out at the start of next year. And we found that a lot of our students were leaving after 6th grade and enrolling in Mid-Prairie at that time because they had a stronger, more robust program at the secondary level. So we're working hard on increasing those opportunities as well.
This year we added in the fall about $5,000 plus, a little bit more than that, of resources based on recommendations of our homeschooling families that meet our, we worked on a library policy, kind of mirroring it after Mid-Prairie's of what's acceptable to add in. Doing that, and we're getting ready to do our next round, and then we'll have curriculum materials ready and with better customer service for our families when they register again in August.
So we also are looking at a pre-enrollment process. And what we found that was happening also in other programs, they were having kind of an open house and opportunity to pre-enroll into homeschool programs prior to that March 1st open enrollment deadline, which you can see would be critical. So we actually have designed a brochure, an enrollment form, and an opportunity for families that pre-enroll to have that opportunity to have materials purchased in advance so that it's ready to go when they start school in August. So we'll be rolling that out here. Actually, the mailing should go out the next day or so. But it will go out to our families that have left us through open enrollment, so that hopefully they'll take another look at us, perhaps, as well as current families.
And current families, that started first week of February. So.
How many families are we talking about?
That have open enrolled out.
So, yeah, how many do we have in, and then how many have open enrolled out?
I believe we have 100, is that right?
We have 81 students being served this year, and Mid Prairie has 99 of our district kids this year.
And when the curriculum, is it similar to what we're using in the rest of the schools? I mean, is it following kind of our curriculum review process?
Well, so the kids that are in the homeschool, we are legally required to give them access to the curriculum materials that we have in our schools. So we do purchase a supply of materials and also teachers' manuals, although we're not required to purchase teacher manuals. Now, I'll let the parents speak to this as parent educators, whether they find that as a valuable resource or what they would prefer, and that was a new learning for us as well. So we have those resources available, but I'll let you speak to that.
Well, I would say I think that some parents do use them, and particularly parents who plan to homeschool for a certain period of time and then enroll their children in school do use those materials, but I think the majority do not use that type of material. And I think that homeschooling gives, one of the benefits of homeschooling is that you get to tailor the education to the individual child. So what would work best for a group of children in a classroom is not necessarily what you want for your own child at home.
Mm-hmm.
So we do use a lot of curriculum that is pretty different from what you could find in a public school. But it does go through the curriculum review process, correct?
Oh, okay.
Whatever is purchased. And whatever we purchase with our own money, of course, we don't have to do that. But
Right.
So materials purchased by
District.
We don't provide consumables, but our Envisions mathematics textbook is a consumable, which is the one difference. But what we'll do is, say, for instance, we purchased a set of recommended ones from that met the criteria. We purchased one consumable as something that parents can utilize but not use. So it's available, so if they want to purchase extra or if they want to just, use it in a different way. But that's how we meet that need for consumables.
How many, so of the 81 kids, how many are secondary?
I'll defer to Amy.
About.
Oh, all right. So we've got about 27% of our kids are at the secondary level. We're pretty heavy. 42% of our kids are in the K-3 level and 30.9% at the grades 4 through 6. So we're pretty heavily in the elementary range.
And I see in your recommendations for facilities, you have access to outdoor spaces, including playgrounds and natural areas. So is that all here that you're looking to do that, or do the homeschool kids also just interact with the closest school that they're living in?
That recommendation would be in particular for wherever the homeschool program is located. In prior years, we had a teacher that was making really good use of the Roosevelt Ravine. He had they were Ravine Scouts or something. He was taking the kids on programming through there. We also often have sibling groups, so it's really convenient if there are playgrounds or something where if some kids are in enrichment activities, the other siblings can be entertained on site here. And we have also, in prior years, we've had PE activities, so we've used both like the outdoor fields and also the gymnasium here to offer that.
Okay. Yeah, well, I would love to see the ravine utilized even greater. I mean, I think that should be our school of the wild in town, and greater use of that, because that's an asset that we should utilize. Thank you.
Are you getting any feedback from, I mean, I guess you're going to send out that early enrollment thing to our families that left. Do we have any other way that we're reaching out and letting folks know that this might, or do we have any feedback on why people were leaving and maybe we're addressing some of those? I would imagine a lot of that would be word of mouth. I don't know.
You can speak to the 10-year celebration.
Right. So this fall, we celebrate our 10th anniversary in the homeschool program with an open house open to the public and all the families coming in. And that's also when we rolled out our one-to-one devices. So that was some good public relations. We've taken the communication and how we're spreading the message, and we've kind of formalized it a little more. It was pretty informal before. One of that is first making sure our district webpage contained a page for the homeschool program that was up to date with our calendar and all the activities, because that's the first stop when somebody wants to find out, is there a homeschooling program in the district? And rather than following a different link to a different link, we went ahead, and that was with the work of our homeschool advisory committee too, helping. I point to Karen and Cara because they were really helpful, helping us along with the teachers of getting that created. And then we have a Facebook page for the homeschool, where that's where like peach jarred kind of ideas and things like that I put out and publicize that. And then our homeschool PTO, which has started, has been a great avenue to get out the positive message and word. And our homeschool families are very connected within the county, and they share ideas and thoughts. And so, our goal is to make a program that supports the families that trust us with the enrichment activities for their children, and that we can support them as best. And so our goal is to create a program that people will want to come to. And right now, we're growing that program. And we've done a lot of changes this year.
And our next main event is February 28th. Is that correct? Do I have the right date?
Yes, and then on February 28th, we're having another open house that's open to the public. It's tied into the open enrollment, or early enrollment and open enrollment deadline also. But that's for anybody who wants to come in. And then our PTO is hosting a curriculum sharing fair of homeschooling curriculum, things that are working for them, and then they can learn from each other. And we're hoping that some people who don't homeschool with the Iowa City Community School District will come and share or learn, or maybe take a look at us.
Great. Sounds like there's a lot going on.
So just a rough data point, out of the 121 students that open enrolled out of our district to Mid-Prairie, it looks like roughly about 33, 35, if I'm doing my math here right, we're grades 7, 12. So
Got it.
it is kind of, the way our data here in the enrollment report shows, it's all elementary heavy, but we're still obviously losing a chunk of secondary kids. And
Yeah.
I think that's one strategy with the diploma program, that maybe we capture some of the students there, and the other improvements they've talked about at the elementary level would help.
Can you explain that? The diploma and how it works and how it's different from a standard diploma?
Yes. I think I brought the materials with me. I'm just double checking. I can see if I have that with me. I think I do.
All right.
Sorry, I didn't have it at my fingertips. Okay, so the homeschool diploma program that we are looking at and that we've been working on would require oversight from our teachers here in the program and parent educators. So there'd be a certain amount of credits required, very similar to state requirements. Claudia, you can. You want to invite Claudia up to the table? Same thing coming? One. I didn't have my glasses on. I didn't see you when you walk in. How are you doing?
I wrote my blowing in your gate team. Oh my gosh, you're fine. Well, now I would have known. I would have been oblivious. And then we had I'm I still think I would try. If we get more snow. That's what it's for. I figured.
We got one more chair in the corner back here. We can pull up. And
We do, yeah, we got seats.
one right there.
That was easy. All right.
Very good.
The last time I was in this building, I was actually
Oh, did?
So everybody's got them? Yep. Anybody need one of these?
made around the table. I think we got
Made it around the table.
Yeah, I think we all got it.
Hello, everybody. My name is John Nitty. I'm the administrator here at Trek. And I do want to introduce, we've got a lot of folks from Trek here. And I'm looking up and I'm seeing some of the information we have on PLCs. And one of the things I would hope you guys would notice is Number 2 there on 3 big ideas is a collaborative culture. Tonight, when we do this, when we talk to you guys about TREC, we're going to do so in a collaborative manner, and that's what we're all about here. I'm really, really proud of the fact that we have a culture here where we do things together as a staff. And so I just kind of wanted to point that out and everybody's presence here tonight. Thank you very much for being here. And I'd like to introduce them all here, and I hope I don't leave anybody out. I don't think that I will. First off, you all know Kate Callahan, Director of Student Services. Wendy Peterson is our math teacher here at TREC. Lisa Brenneman kind of wears many hats here at TREC, but she's teaches social, right, but she's also kind of our online learning person too in the building in the district.
And provides actually counseling support for homeschool assistants and
Okay.
as well.
Kara, where's Kara? Kara Prattner is our student family advocate. Vincent Lemkuhl is, he's new in terms of teaching on our staff. However, Vinny was a para here prior to becoming a teacher, so he's kind of homegrown, and we're very proud of that. And Travis Foschel is a teacher here at TREC as well. And Travis is working on his administrative degree, so I've involved him in a lot of the things that I do with the staff, and Travis has done a really good job with that, so thank you. There are 2 handouts here. There's the TREC mission that we'll kind of go through together, but there's also this copy. It's a 6-year review of statistics. As I look at this, I'm kind of involved on this first page in my time here. Has just been about 2 years, and I know Kate will be able to speak to a lot of the data that is older than that, and so I kind of have this broken down, and we'll just go forward here with the TREC mission. But as I do so, I think it's important to go from here and reference some of the information on the tables here on the 6-year review. The Theodore Roosevelt Education Center houses students served in 7 through 12 grade specialized programs. Students are referred to TREC from their secondary school. Referrals may occur in 3 formats. And I just realized I forgot somebody. It just popped in my... Claudia Klein is a parent, and she'd like to have an opportunity before we're done to speak about her experiences with TREC as well. Claudia, I'm so sorry. I thought I wouldn't forget anybody. Okay, so referrals may occur in 3 formats. So students are referred to us in 3 different ways. The first one is proactive support. And as you look at this one, the proactive support would be, if you look over at this table, referral reason transitional support. Students return from residential facilities, treatment centers, detention, or other placements. Teams meet to determine what supports will be necessary to assist a student to re-enter the district and community. If a student is receiving special education services, the IEP team will meet to determine what supports are needed. Often, the student's needs can be met at their secondary school. Sometimes the teams will determine a more systematic wraparound approach is needed to ensure successful transition. In these cases, a student may begin at TREC full-time, or there might be a blended program between TREC and the secondary school. And I think it's important to point out here that I've really come to understand in my 2 years here that every situation is different, and I mean every single one of them. There are no 2 kids and their situations that I could say, you know, that's really about the same. No, it isn't. And it's just, I don't know how to explain it other than to say it's every situation is unique and is treated as such, and I think it's important to do that. The second referral, school-based referrals, and again, if you refer over to this sheet, you can see kind of some percentages there that go along with that. Some students are referred to TREC because they are struggling at their secondary school for a variety of reasons. Administrators will contact Kate, the Director of Student Services, and a team will meet to develop plans to support the student. Parents, students, school representatives, and other community supports are an integral part of the team. If the student is receiving special education services, the IEP team may be utilized or will be utilized. Again, I think about this and I think about my time here, and as we talk about these plans and how we develop them, I know Wendy, Lisa, and Kara are going to talk a little bit more about this, but there are no two plans that are the same either. Every student that we have, I don't think you could find a plan and fit it with another student. That's how individualized they are, and I think it's really important, and it really serves us well and serves students well. And finally, number 3, discipline incidents in the school or larger community. Significant behavior incidents such as long-term suspensions and expulsions may result in placement at TREC. These placements are made by the assistant superintendent, long-term suspensions, or school board expulsions.
And I would say that makes up probably a minor fraction of the students that come here. And then the other things that I would mention about the referrals that come in, when a decision is made for a student to come to TREC, it's not a decision that's imposed on a family, it's a decision that's made jointly, unless it is a long-term suspension of that manner or a disciplinary type of situation. So usually at the time we're sitting down at the table, parents are really needing and wanting that level of support. And sometimes kids may not think they want or need that level of support, but what the staff will share with you is by the time they're ready to leave, usually kids do not want to leave. But we always say you're just here for a while, and then it will be time to move on. But it's a joint decision.
Okay, Ms. Peterson and Ms. Brenneman, would you guys like to speak on the transitional program?
Yeah. So as John mentioned, we very much build plans for every individual student. So when students come to us, we have a meeting and we'll sit down and set goals for each student. So every single student that comes to our building has a very specific goal for them. And those are goals that they work on in order to be able to be eligible to return back to their home school. And with that, then we provide supports and instruction and things like that to help them reach those goals so that they can meet, they are successful when they return. Like Kate mentioned, a lot of them don't want to leave. I have a couple kids from my homeroom roster that are going to return to their home schools full time, and they're like, I don't really want to go, Ms. Peterson. That happens because they have found some success that some of them have not had in the past. So.
And I think the small setting is what really plays into that too. And the consistency, we have to be very consistent here in enforcing these plans and following these plans. And it's very structured, and I think sometimes these kids want that structure and they need that structure. And so they like it. They end up liking it. They don't like it when they first come here probably, but most of them, but they get to a point where they feel like the small setting and the consistency and structure, I think.
And they make a lot of connections to staff that sometimes they don't. Yeah. There's only a few kids in a class, they can connect to the adults in the building easier than they can in a classroom that has 30 kids in it. So that sometimes makes a big difference for those kids too.
So then they're successful here, they do really well. So how successful are they when they go back to a City High or a West that doesn't have the structure, doesn't have or Liberty, sorry. So what's that?
Well, we send them back gradually, so we don't just dump them in and say goodbye. We work them back in gradually, maybe 1-2 classes at a time. We work with the school very closely and with the teachers of the 2 classes they're taking and that kind of thing, so that it's a more smooth transition.
Yeah. So a lot of times kids that are coming may have 2 or 3 trimesters of school failure. So it's a chance to regroup and have kids earn credit and learn the behaviors they need to be successful in a comprehensive high school setting. So that becomes a major focus, and those when we're looking at what those behaviors need to look like, we work closely with the counselor at the school, the staff at the school, and the administrator at the school, so that when we're ready to transition, we can ensure hopefully that those kids have the skills they need. But again, it's that slow transition. But not always. Again, when you say something like that, it's always a case-by-case basis, and I can think of 2 kids we just did a full reintegration on. So as I say that, but it's student dependent. But when we start that integration process, part of the job of the staff at TREC is to ensure that a child is successful in their secondary school, and that means passing classes. It means that you may sit down with that student before they take off and make sure that they have their assignments done, and that they are prepared and can go to class and learn how to be successful by doing homework and such. So we haven't had any kids actually return to this program after they left, if they've actually fulfilled the program. We had a student exit earlier than we expected, which is all the more reason why not to allow that if they actually followed through with the program. They do not return, and usually the next time we see them is at their graduation. So a lot of our staff here attend the different graduations, and it's really probably one of the most, I guess, one of the most meaningful times. A lot of the careers of our people here is to watch students cross that stage. When they came to us, at a point they were either dropping out or bottoming out in some way.
I would encourage everybody, if you would have a second, and actually when you guys go to your closed session out in that foyer, in that hallway, over the 2 years that I've been here, we have decided to put up pictures of students who have graduated from here. And Mike Smithy, who's a local police officer, I had the opportunity to build a relationship with, and when he was actually kind of out on the street. Now he's, I think, a detective. But he would, from time to time, stop by, and I kind of built a relationship with him, and in a roundabout way, found out that he was a photographer on the side, and he volunteers to do this. He will take the students, take their pictures, pay for the pictures, and these students, some of the students that I'm talking about, would not be able to access anything like that. And so to get senior pictures for these kids is graduating is monumental, right? But being able to overcome that barrier of actually getting pictures, it's been awesome. So I'd like you to
He provides copies to the family.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it's really cool.
So does every kid go back to one of the comprehensive high schools and graduate, or
Pretty,
can they graduate?
most of the students will graduate back after comprehensive high school. There was a point in time when we were receiving a lot of kids from a group home that would come when they're at 18 or right at the end of their senior year, and the group home is no longer in our community right now, is it?
It is not.
It is not. So then we tended to have more kids graduate. They would be down to needing 1 or 2 or 3 classes. And generally those have been students that have bounced around a variety of residential treatment centers throughout their junior high and high school career. Most of our students will reintegrate back into their high school. Every once in a while we'll have a student that will finish here, and they still, if they finish here, they receive a diploma from their high school and attend the graduation ceremonies there as well.
And even if they aren't here full-time when they graduate, if they're here, like we have a student right now that's going to graduate at the end of the year, he's going to be back at West full-time most likely. We still got the pictures for him, and we'll still put his pictures up there. We still are very proud that he's going to succeed and graduate. So we don't just say, if you're not graduating from here, you can't do it.
I think Kara should explain the wraparound.
When students are here, like I've said many times, they each get an individual plan. A big part of my job is I kind of figure out what kind of supports a student needs, what kind of barriers they have to accessing those supports. So whether they need therapy, how do I get them therapy? Or if they need maybe a psychological evaluation and diagnosis, I figure out how to get them that. If they need glasses, I can help families with that. Like anything that they need to be successful in school, I work with those students, making sure that they can access those things. And I work with the families. It's really a team. It's a whole team working together, and parents' involvement is very important. The other things we have like social skills groups or ART, depending on the student's specific needs. We have
training.
Different programs. Oh yeah. Sorry, so used to saying it, yes. Aggression replacement training. So depending on why the student's here, they might need more of a therapeutic room. Other students may need more of the aggression replacement training. So we really identify those students' needs. I do a lot of times I'll do a lot of research as a student gets here, as we're going to be doing the intake, to find out their history and find out what problems they've had in the past. If they've had, a lot of students have had maybe hospitalizations. I get the paperwork on that, so we can really look at their background and really look and see why are they struggling, so we can make sure that they're successful when they come here.
Just really getting to the root cause of why a kid is struggling. There's not a kid out there that wants to be bad or not be successful. but there's usually something that has been in the way. I'd say we've also caught a lot of misdiagnoses, over time. And once you get the right services to kids, then you can move them along on their way.
And I guess one more piece of information I'd like to share on this side is when it says the TRAC strives to build an academic program that will be successful for each student. As a longtime teacher and then an administrator in the comprehensive schools, what I knew about scheduling was that a schedule existed and students were plugged into that schedule. And I came here and my eyes were opened immediately to see that that is absolutely not the way we do things here. We collaborate, we sit down together, and basically what students need drives our schedule. So if you asked me a month ago what our Tri-3 schedule would look like, what would we offer, I really wouldn't be able to tell you. I would have said, I don't know. Because the students will change, their needs will change, and that will drive our schedule. Now if you ask me today, I'd say, hey, I'll show it to you, because it's done, right, Wendy?
Yes.
Wendy does a great job with our schedule, but what ends up happening is we don't have a guidance counselor here, so we have to rely on communication with counselors at the home schools and the knowledge and expertise of our case managers to dig into what it is that they have in terms of credits that they've already acquired, but then what do they need? And then how are we going to provide that? Because we have to. And so we're going to figure out a way, and we do that. And it takes a lot of work. And I'm really proud of where we're at with that process right now. But I would have, if somebody would have tried to explain it to me 2 years ago, I would never have understood it. And I've just never seen it before. So it's a really, really neat process.
And I also want to point out, the flexibility of the teachers is amazing, because at the beginning of the school year, we really don't have any 7th graders. So we don't have any 7th grade classes at all at the beginning of the school year. But generally, midway through first try, we start seeing those 7th graders come in, and they basically have to add a brand new class to their, schedule. We have to have classes for 7th graders.
Classes at the same time,
So,
they're differentiating.
Yep, so they are so flexible, and to make sure that the students get what they need and they're not falling behind.
How many staff?
Oh, wow. I knew there'd be a question I wouldn't be able to answer right off the bat.
5 full-time teachers
Right.
and 2 half-time, right? Yeah.
8 or 10
No,
associates.
5 case managers.
John,
Yeah,
8 or 10 associates.
around 10 associates. We just hired one, and he's got to finish up his orientation. But that's another thing. I mean, it's all hands on deck here. Paras in this building, para-educators are extremely important. And if without them, I don't know what we would do. And I really, really am happy. When I came to the Iowa City Community School District in this position, there were just staff members not hired. We didn't have a full staff. And we have had a full staff the last 2 years, and we've really been fortunate. How I've come upon some of these people, I don't know. Some of them have BAs. I know three left here that were college educated last year and moved on to grad school. But they decided to spend a year here with us, and they really grew, and they would be the first to say that they're better for it. But obviously the kids are better for it as well.
Yeah. The people that work here have a passion for working with students.
It's not for everybody.
But Vinny came to us with a business background, business degree, and then he went in as he was a paraeducator, and then went to get that special ed degree. And Vinny had an opportunity to teach many different places and chose to teach at TRAC, which is pretty cool.
So I guess to finish up on the actual mission, TREC, on the backside here, TREC is successful when students transition back into their secondary school. Transition planning and a systematic approach to reintegration provide support as students return to their secondary school to ensure a successful reentry. And I just made a note here to myself, that it is my belief, and the statistics will back it up, that we are extremely successful in transitioning students back to their home schools. In fact, I've had several conversations within the last week. Right now, I'm actively working along with teachers with 9 students who are transitioning either all the way back to their home school or at least half of the day, and constant phone calls and building of schedules and figuring out how students will get where they're going. And one student who came to us from a residential placement who just, I think, yesterday completed his graduation requirements.
Oh, yes.
So
That's cool.
we'll have another one to add to our photos out there.
He's done? He's coming back, right, though?
Well, he's still supposed to complete 2 classes, but
I
he's...
thought he was gonna say goodbye.
No, but he is, yeah, he will be done at the end of this trimester.
So I think maybe now would be a good time to have Ms. Klein speak. I asked her, once I knew we were going to have this, if she would be willing to come and speak on behalf of Trek and her experiences, and as always, she was ready to step up and do that. So.
As a guardian and grandparent of a child that was here, and was now at your school at this time, Kate was very instrumental in bringing her to Trek. She was at West and things were not going well. She, imagine as yourself having ADHD, depression, anxiety, not having a good base about yourself, not knowing who you are, with 2,000 students in a setting that you just can't function in. Not some self-imposed, don't get me wrong, most of it self-imposed, but not having a direction. And it's not that the school did not try to help her, that West did not try to help her. That's not the case. She was beyond what they were able to help with. Kate became involved. We sat down with Mr. Nettie and Kate, went through the initial, and she was there, went through the initial introduction to Trek. This is one of the least known schools in this area. I can say Trek, and they'll know where Theodore Roosevelt is, but they will not know what happens here. That's probably mine. So just ignore it. I forgot to turn it off. We came here. They have worked every moment that she was here towards integrating her here. They saw her for the first time in her life. They took an interest in her. They prepared individual things they had to do with her, how to get her involved, how to teach her how to learn. She is quite intelligent. She can figure out how to get around anything anybody gives her. It was just that she needed that directed back to her studies. Trek was able to do that for her. She has a great love for a lot of the teachers here. She really does. And the teachers invested themselves in her. They expected her to invest herself in herself, something that she really didn't know how to go about doing. Probably was not much fun some days. I've heard some things comments she's made here. I mean, I'm sure all of us were up and down the ropes. But I have nothing but admiration for what this school has done for my grandchild, what I have heard it has done to other children. I was sitting in at a funeral of my best friend's mother within the last month. A woman in front of me was discussing her son who has done something wrong at another school and is at this school for a period of time. And she was going on how much he loved this school, how much he appreciated the hours he was here. There are only 40 students. He didn't have to do homework. The pressures were relieved from him, that he could gear back. And from some of the things she said, I can see some of the things that happened. And each of us as parents sometimes don't want to see what the truth is. But she was speaking to these other people at a funeral about how wonderful this school is. I can only say I know firsthand what this school has done for my granddaughter. And I have a granddaughter, she has had outside help as well, but this school put her on the path to learning. She will graduate 1 year early this year due to what this school has done for her. There are no words that can express how I feel about Trek. Now, she had to buy into it, Trek had to buy into it, Liberty had to buy into transferring her to Liberty. They did. They have worked incredibly with her. She has not gotten in any trouble. Classes are harder at high school than they are here. She has an A and 2 C's in the classes. She is holding her own from a student that was a DF when she came here. You cannot tell me this school doesn't work. And I have had some of the students that go here in my home, unknown to me, and never have I been treated without respect. And some of these kids are the worst of the worst. But yet in my own home, they've treated me well. So I thank this school, this town, for having such an opportunity. I wished I could speak to 1 million people and tell them what we have right here in Iowa City. It's incredible. And I don't know how to say thank you, because it makes a difference.
Thank you.
No, I know it. I live it. And she laughs now, and she interacts, and she's becoming a person. She has a boyfriend. She's socializing. It's a very slow process, but we've never had this. She is finally seeing what being a student is. There aren't a lot of friends, but there's a network, and without Trek, she would not have had that. So, thank you.
And thank all of you.
Yes. Yes.
So don't you mind that you need to bust out that package of Kleenex?
You don't need to pass the box around up here.
It's that powerful. It is that powerful when you sit in it.
If anybody has any questions.
at all?
I'm curious if you have kids that come in from other districts that attend here?
We do when they come out of residential treatment. So
We haven't. Well,
We have.
we have kids actually that want to open enroll sometimes, and we're working through some of those issues. I mean, it's kind of, it's one of those best kept secrets in some cases where you'll get, I've actually had a physician write a prescription for Trek. Never seen that before. But sometimes, as people will go to different treatment facilities, they'll mention Trek, and then a lot of people want to come, but or we'll find out people that do want to come, but you know, again, we only have so many spaces for kids. We primarily serve Iowa City kids. And then we did have, for a while, quite a few kids in group homes that came to us.
So I guess that's my question about the capacity. Are we meeting the need? Do we need more capacity? Is it?
I think it's really, I think part of it is making the appropriate referrals, and John and Kate do a tremendous job of working through that with the building principals to make sure that, we're not too quickly, moving on a situation, but also being responsive quickly enough, to some situations. And so I think that's a delicate balance for us, that we're not moving kids off, their traditional high school campuses before they need to, but also making sure we have capacity to serve the ones that do need that, and have that need demonstrated right away. So I don't know if we'd ever say enough's enough. I don't think we're in that kind of fiscal climate. But at the same time, I think we're doing a tremendous job with the resources we have. And these guys, they definitely have the all kids mentality, right? They serve whoever walks through the door, no questions asked. We're going to build a plan, whatever it takes, individualize it and structure that. And as John talked about the schedule, I think that's what I've learned too throughout that process is really, it's based on the student's need. And so trying to move all those pieces together and make it work for those kids is important. But I guess to wrap that point up with what Kate's talking about with the open enrollment, if we do have kids, and they're trying to get into the Iowa City Community School District and ask them for Trek, we really start at that home high school piece still and say, start there, and then we work through a referral process the same way. So that's how we handle those enrollments in. And I think it's a continual thing we talk about if we are serving the right number of students here, or do we have a need for a growing one? Obviously, as we grow student population wise, Tate and Trek and things like that, if they stay constant, that's a kind of a issue for us to continue to think about, I think.
Yeah, it just seems like we've got, it's a great model, but if you doubled the kids, the model might not be so great because you might not have capacity. But if we're on to something and it's a way that we can sort of lead the way with other districts and kind of show them how this model works, and because obviously we all know there's kids who aren't going to fit in at that point in their life. But I just think if working so well, it's something that we offer. Is there a way we can demonstrate that? Or
Well, not all the pieces are replicable to our large high schools or large junior highs, but at the same time, when we know things work for students here, what can we take to those campuses and try to shrink the day down? I think that's what's beneficial or what's impactful for some of the students is the amount of personalities they encounter in a large high school, whether it's students or staff, and trying to take some of those pieces and say, how do we kind of shrink that day down for them and close their circle a little bit so they can build some relationships with some folks they trust. And so I think there's some learnings from successful experiences at Trek that we need to apply that way also. And I think that's part of our next step is figuring out how to make that work.
I'd say in addition to that too, we have a student services coordinator that used to be a staff member here at Trek. And sometimes if we'll have referrals, our administrators will call and wonder if it's time for a referral. And she'll actually go in the building and work with kids and implement some of the plans that we found successful here at Trek and help students stay at their home school as well. So, we do try to keep kids at their home school whenever possible.
you find there's a good understanding of our secondary principles about good referrals or
I think so.
Okay.
I think so. I mean, there's not many I don't even know that we turn that many away. I mean, we do try to, if we can push in services, we try to do that first. But the referrals are appropriate, I would say.
Any other questions?
Your secretary walked in though. You want to introduce Sarah?
Sarah?
Yeah.
She's hiding.
Try to hide in the back.
Yeah, back there.
Sarah Eisenberg, our secretary. Hi, Sarah, thanks for coming. So I think if there are no more questions.
Thanks so much.
Thank you again. Thank you.
Appreciate
Thanks
the
for
opportunity.
listening.
Oh, absolutely. Thank you for sharing.
So we just need some agenda setting.
All good.
So,
you okay? Yeah, that's good to see you too. Thank you so much. Tell Alex you said hi.
Please do. She'll be back to visit. Only to visit. We only tell them they can come visit.
thank you. I remember, so I was at the board meeting and Jen and I jotted something down and I'm remembering, was it the LGBTQ climate survey? Because I didn't bring my notebook with me that I wrote that down. So that was one that came up, like maybe this is a good format to unpack that stuff. I'm always really interested and concerned about what we're doing for mental health, what our mental health supports look like, suicide prevention, how available that is, how easy it is for a teacher who, one, do they know what to look for, and two, if they see something, how do they get that information out right away? And within that bubble, I think we're all probably super concerned about school safety. And we've got people calling for, the Army to come to our schools. Machine gun. I mean, people are like, we need armed guards right now in every school. And so I think that discussion and what, are we giving Alice training to elementary school kids and what?
I'll tell you, we just worked with Kim today to put together our agenda for our operations meeting, which is, obviously, it's not all of us, it's only a small subset, but safety is the number one thing on the agenda there. It already was a priority prior to the past weekend, and it was one of the first things we're going to talk about, but our meetings have been bumped by all the work sessions that we have, and we kind of decided we're just going to have it, and that is something we're going to discuss there, so we'll probably have a discussion, and maybe we'll bring some of that topic back to everybody else, but is number one.
And then, Paul, we got that email about sexual harassment, right? And that's people specifically asking for a policy, which is P&G. But kind of within that email, I'm like, well, what are we doing for bullying? Like, what is our policy for bullying? How, do we want some updates on what that looks like? And are we keeping track of, and so again, those are all some pretty broad topics, but there's some intersection in a lot of those as well. And so I don't know what would be most valuable. I don't want to replicate what we're doing in other committees because I don't think that's helpful, but this as a committee of the whole, what's something we can talk about or get a presentation on from that big perspective on these sort of
One topic and something that Phil brought up regarding our board goals was around the career pathways, or what was the language that you used, Phil, to describe that? But I know the team's working on that. It'd be nice to have a review and discussion at one of these committees.
Alignment of our career and technical program. Right, to make sure that it's building block and that it leads to a successful end instead of just kind of being a little sampling here and there. So
it's cohesive and aligned, and I don't know.
We kind of have a sample template built, and we've started some conversation with Cedar Rapids and a couple other local districts. We've invited them to join in the work. They haven't jumped in yet, but and then engaged Kirkwood Community College in that to try to articulate what are the high school offerings, what are the academies that you could potentially do, certificates, 4-year degrees, and building that pathway out through. So at some point, I think we'd be ready to bring one of those templates forward to show and kind of review that.
And are we doing anything with Des Moines Central with them, or?
Well, I mean, I mean, they have similar programs, so I think that's part of a conversation about, how deep do we want to dive into, the career and technical ed piece. There's really 16 different areas identified to us from the state that we could build these templates after that Diane and I talked about this week, and so I think we'll start with those 16 and kind of give you a state of affairs about where we feel like we're at. That may take some work to get all 16 done, but we could bring a couple of examples, I think, and show you, like, here's what we have, and then as we continue to build those out, that may drive some conversation about where we think we need to go next or areas of study for us.
And, we tried to get the resource discussion a little bit earlier with the Ed committee and that, so I would like to see us review of safety and security, what we've spent already, and, that way, as our secure entrances and fencing.
We're going to cover that in operations when we meet. You probably haven't seen that agenda yet.
Oh, okay.
But that's
what
right.
yeah,
So safety and security is operations.
All right, fantastic. Well, we need to.
Did we discuss having the LGBTQ at a work session? Unpacking that there?
Discuss that we want to have
I'd see how that's really very much connected to bullying type policies. I don't know if they end up being in separate places or not, or if they should be together in a discussion. I could see those two definitely going hand in hand.
And the bullying one too, would it be helpful for Kingsley to come in and actually do a walkthrough to say, from the moment a complaint is initiated, here is the process that unfolds, so you can see, kind of start to finish in a hypothetical situation, what happens? Because I think that might really help the group understand what the process is, what the steps are, what the role of staff is in that, students, parents, etc.
And do we have data? Do we track that?
I was going to say, he gave a report to the board at some point.
Yeah, but the report's just the numbers. That's why I was wondering if seeing the process might help understand the numbers.
But I'm just thinking in terms of our board agendas, if we're covering that here, that's great, but that's also something we could work into the calendar to make sure it gets covered sometime in the year.
Yeah, I think we'll make sure that the numbers are coming to you. So I'm not sure if at some point in time it would help to see the process.
I think so. So I'm just trying to figure out the right place. Matt, that career and tech, I mean, is April?
Yeah, I think we could have some significant
Should have a
progress
couple
to
of them
show
done
you,
by
and
then.
then, yeah.
So maybe we could, let's plan that for April.
Yep.
And then, so March would be like the 20th, right? Third, what are we, the third Tuesday?
Isn't that?
Oh, that's the
Board
second
meeting?
Tuesday. No.
It
It's
is,
the 20th.
it's you're correct, it's the 20th. Yep.
Okay, so how do folks feel? I know that when we saw the climate survey on LGBTQ, it felt like you could dig into that a little bit. And at the board table, that's not the time to probably really do the deep dive on that. Could we combine bullying and that climate survey? Is that too much for a night, or is that? I mean, if Kingsley just gave it an overview of a process, that shouldn't take.
When we work with presenters, we just give them a time frame. So they'll present to the time frame. If you've got a half an hour, they'll take it. If you give them an hour, I'm sure they'll take that too. But I think we can do both of them if we tell them that they've got 30 minutes each.
And I did ask them to prepare something, because they were asking for some sort of mandate. I'd asked if they could bring that back to us. So I would want to know if they've met yet. Like, have they had a chance to
I don't know.
complete that work?
You're talking to the students, Lori?
The committee, the LGBTQ
okay.
committee.
I thought you were back to the good conduct piece.
Do you have students? Do students speak at that?
Well, we should be bringing them.
Just because
in.
at
We
West,
should-
with
yes,
our gay
with-
straight lines colors, they've represented faculty meetings before. It's very powerful.
Same at Liberty.
Yeah, so it might be
Right.
good to have some kids.
Well, absolutely, and the thing where I see the intersection on a lot of this is that safety, in the climate survey where the students don't feel safe in the buildings, and with events that are happening around us that are drawing a lot of attention, bullying is at the heart of all of this, and definitely bringing in the students that, I mean, how many times have they come before us and talk about them not feeling safe and alienated in that, and I think that the Students Against Hate and Discrimination should be, part of this piece.
And this could be, for those kids who might not feel comfortable going to a board meeting and speaking out, this could be a much better, more comfortable venue, especially if we get their some adults who they feel safe.
Maybe we could hold it at one of the high schools.
Where, yeah, I absolutely would love to. I was
Their
thinking
home turf
Liberty,
then.
but where? Yeah, I want to get these out in the schools. I just think it's great. Or in junior high, frankly. Where do folks want to meet? Sean wants me to live.
Do we want representative students from all schools?
I like showing off my school.
Can we invite the GSAs?
Yeah, because what we might do is see where the kids are available, and then look for the school that's easiest for them.
That'd be great. And maybe aim for one of City West or Liberty.
Yeah, so I just want to be clear on what we're getting ready for you guys.
Oh,
So it sounds like student climate report, you want some breakdown of that, and then representatives from the community.
From the GSAs.
Yep. And then the other piece was, are we doing anything with the bullying?
Yeah,
piece?
have
Do we
Kingsley
wanna
come in
review
and
that?
give us
And those
the-
are kind of the
yeah.
big two components then for the March meeting.
I think
And then
that-
April, we talk CTE.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
And the only other thing that I think Paul brought up was about the editorial piece with the West High. So if you're going to come back to that, the only thing I mentioned is we just want to make sure that's a night the athletic directors can talk to you about good conduct policy and some of that, if that's a topic you end up taking on, so.
And we're going to do that in PNG, right, Paul? Was that the thought?
Yeah.
Oh, that's going to go to PNG. Okay. So we can talk about that then about.
So the education committee doesn't usually meet during the summer, and I don't know if we'll meet in May, but I do like to get a report on preschool at some point in the year. I think it's been a while since we've had one.
We did it last year.
Yeah, but every year I like to get that report and find out. Yeah.
So preschool, early childhood stuff. That lady at the board brought up this idea of junior kindergarten.
Yeah.
Isn't interesting. Those kids that just fall into that gap. So May could be sort of early childhood stuff. That would be, and then we could do that at some place where they have a preschool. Really convenient.
And I guess I would ask Amy and Steve, is that the right timing for that kind of report, or would that be a fall report that would be better?
I think we can do it anytime.
Yeah, I think
we can do that
We talked about
anytime.
our student enrollment this year with, you remember, we're trying to open more spots. with
Yeah,
our
that's what I'm
enrollment.
interested in finding out, yeah.
That's the year. Holy
That's it.
smokes.
Yeah.
That's good, though. This has been a lot of good information. Any other thoughts or ideas or things that people think this is a good place to talk about? Teachers, you guys got any?
No, we'll help get the students from the GSAs.
Yeah, that'd be
and-
great.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, love it when the students come.
Well, one of the, recommendations out of the committee was to have more, support for the student groups,
Yeah.
right? So it kind of seems like that's a pretty good reason to have them
We
come
did at West,
advocate for
at our
that.
ILT meeting last week, the stickers, the Safe Zone stickers, but I don't think we have any actually trained teachers that have done the Safe Zone training. So
Right.
people just put the sticker up, but what does that mean?
And it's free online, actually.
Yeah, they should go to
So,
the training.
yeah, so that's part of the discussion, just to make sure that we can have some thresholds that they're gonna put the sticker up.
Has anybody been, I've been through half of it, but it's worthwhile, it's really good. I got a pin, I don't have the poster.
Honors already.
Yeah. Do we have anything else?
Far down the road, future topic, I think at some point it would be nice to discuss athletics. Totally different part of education, but it's something that we never cover.
Okay.
And I know there's some, maybe we need to know exactly what everyone in athletic directors do and
Sure.
I'd love
the benefits
Yeah, I
of
know what
some of that
athletic
stuff.
directors do, how, yeah, that's great, all
Get
that.
an overview of what opportunities there are for kids, season by season, by grade level.
How many kids involved,
Sure.
that sort of thing.
We talk about it a lot with your transportation discussions, so.
Yeah, that'll be good. I mean, is the fall a good time to do that?
Yeah, we can do a
Fall?
roundup of this year as we're moving into next year, so
Okay.
that way, and I think about it from the idea, instead of waiting to get an agenda rolling, if we know that, we can work with them so that they're ready to go in September. So
Great.
if you want to, Kim, put that down, that's a September one,
For fall.
we'll be ready to go with that. And it's third Tuesday in September, so that'll give them time to get the fall season underway and settled in and be ready to come in and share that.
And because of athletics, you won't see me in April or May, so.
Speaking of athletics.
Yeah, that's right. All right, is there anything else? Anything else from the best tennis coach in the state?
Just motion to adjourn, if I can know it.
Yeah, I would entertain a motion to adjourn. All in favor?
Aye.
Actually, no.
Yeah.